Chapter 40. After long hours of steering the boat, Avantil asked, "Could you mind the wheel for a bit, Bok?" "Of course. Go below and deck and rest. I can keep us pointed in a straight line." Bok climbed up to the bridge and took over the captain's seat. He welcomed the chance to sit in an actual chair, and as long as the winds didn't shift, he would be fine, and Avantil, the only true sailor on the boat, could enjoy a well-deserved break. "I am going below deck as well." Isabella stretched her arms over her head. "I shall be back before long, though, and I shall bring some of the bread and fruit Umra sent. By Queen Imperia's scepter, I am famished." When his companions left, Bok looked down from his perch and spotted Kotarian standing immediately below, leaning across the deck rail with a half-empty wine bottle in hand. Bok swallowed hard and considered his next words carefully. "Kotarian, come join me up here. It's a spectacular view of, well, nothing really, but I'd appreciate the company."
"Not interested."
He didn't bother turning around.
"Don't talk to me, Bok, or Baron, or whoever you are, and I'll act in kind."
"Yes, I understand you are upset. The situation back in the scene with your House of Magic companions." At this, Kotarian spun to face Bok.
"You understand nothing."
His eyes flared.
"You never set foot in a high magic class on Cenarian Square. Never spent hours straining your eyes by candlelight to prepare for an exam. Never known fluttering in your stomach at the knowledge that you would be called to demonstrate your prowess, to succeed or fail in front of your classmates."
There is so much I do not know about high magic," Bok admitted. Kotarian looked out over the water and sighed. The tension left his body with his exhaled breath.
"I know you do not understand. I do not blame you for that. How could you, given your upbringing? But I worked for years to become a member of the House of Magic. I dreamed of it. Until what I heard at Nassim. No, I do not blame you for not understanding. But forgive me if I do not revel in your newfound glory."
Well, he couldn't excuse Kotarian's behavior. Bok at least could understand its source a little better. "Well, I'm sorry if I've caused you any pain. But unlike you, I never asked for these abilities. Also, you don't have to worry about me being any type of competition. I will not be joining the House of Magic." Kotarian touched the back of his neck.
You won't?"
"No. I have no idea what I'm going to do with this newfound knowledge. But the house isn't the place for me. No offense. Can you imagine me, with my homespun clothes and Sola Valley mannerisms, in the commons room you've spoken about? Besides, I don't look good in gray." Kotarian chuckled under his breath. He started to respond, but Bok stopped him. "Don't say it. I know. I don't look good in green, brown, red, and so on." They both roared. For the first time, they shared a laugh together, rather than Kotarian laughing at Bok's expense. As if reading Bok's mind, Kotarian continued. "Unlike the rest of you, I've not shared much about my upbringing. I suppose I owe you at least that much." He leaned against the boat, elbows propped on the rail. "My father owns an estate just outside of Ithanel. He's a minor lord in the hierarchy of the noble class. It isn't the same as being a princess or the heir to the largest merchant enterprise in the known lands. But my family did well enough in days gone by, I suppose." Bok nodded. "You briefly mentioned as much back in Nassim. Obviously, you must be from the noble class to practice high magic. I'd say your family is still doing well from where I'm at."
"Yes, well, that perspective may not be accurate.
Kotarian drank some more of his wine.
I said my father is a minor lord. What I didn't mention was how minor he is, in both land and honor. My family once owned 400 acres of fruit orchards, employing some 100 peasants to work the estate. But managing such a complex operation never interested my parents, nor did any other professions. Instead, mother held elaborate parties, and father his regular card games. At first, they mortgaged just a few acres to pay their debts. A short-term solution that would right itself when the summer crop came in, they said. But that windfall did not materialize, nor did the next summers, or the one after that. But did they cut back on parties or gambling? Bok, I trust you are intelligent enough to discern that answer. When I was 12 summers, the lenders from Ithanel came calling. We lost more than 90% of the estate. 90%. That left us with a token estate by the standards of the noble class, and a manor house quickly falling into shambles. Of course, father and mother spent more time keeping up pretenses than in finding a solution. They have lost even more land since I left to become an apprentice 7 years ago. If they lose their remaining tract, they will be landless. And what do we call nobles without land, Bok?
I am not sure. Kotarian swallowed the last drink from his bottle.
We don't call them nobles any longer. That's what. Anyway, against that backdrop, young Kotarel Jonaro had to go to school, go to social functions, attend mothers' parties with children from noble-class families who owned more land, who held loftier titles, and who were aware of my family's struggles. They never let me forget them. No matter how I excelled in academics or athletics, I was the outcast. I once won an oratory competition at school, but when the judge handed me the bronze cup, a dozen or so copper coins spilled out. At that point, the second-place finisher announced to my jeering classmates that he had taken up a collection to help the struggling Gennaro family.
Bok clasped his hands together as the boat continued moving down the river. And when Avantil hit you, it brought you back to that point. What those other children said and did. That's why Kotarian is a bully. Because he first was a bully's victim. Kotarian continued.
So, at age 14 summers, Kotarel Gennaro begged a ride into Ithanel and knocked on the door of the House of Magic. On that day, Kotarel Gennaro ceased to exist.
He gestured to his gray jacket.
And Kotarian came to be. I had a place where I belonged, but Alandrian ended all that back at Nassim. I may have won our battle, but we both were stabbed through the heart that day.
Bok involuntarily shivered at Kotarian's grim analogy. The breeze continued moving the boat forward as it swished the pine trees on the riverbank. You felt betrayed by people you thought were friends. But Alandrian, Salandrian, they don't speak for the House of Magic.
Lonorian and Karagian deemed me expendable, Kotarian roared. They sent me here, thinking I might die, and not caring if I did. You cannot possibly relate to the sense of betrayal I now feel.
You are right. I can't. If Winnie Khan ever betrayed me in the way your mentors did, well, I'm not sure I could ever fully recover. But I also know that there are good people, just as there are bad. For all your bluster, I know which category you fit into. Yes, Alondra implanted a dark seed in your mind, but you can choose not to nurture it. Fishing birds flew over the boat. Bonk looked Kotarian directly in the eye. Had they asked, would you have done it? Would you have joined the Scions of Cenarion? Kotarian scoffed.
Of course not. My loyalty to the crown and the kingdom has never been in doubt.
No, it hasn't, Bach continued. And would you have murdered the Yolt family? Or stood by and watched Salandrian slaughter them in his mad experiment?
No, not a chance. I may not have much use for the serving class, but murder? Never.
Well, then there's your answer. You weren't expendable. You were invaluable. Salandrian knew you would oppose him, and that scared him. He and his underlings realized you wouldn't betray what the House of Magic stands for, and they tried to kill you for it. Kotarian turned away from Bach and stepped back to the rail, exhaling deeply.
What is wrong with you, peasant? After how I behaved, you remain kind to me. You must be as simple-minded as you are ignorant of the world.
He paused.
Either that, or I have been wrong about you from the beginning, and the blacksmith raised a better man than I could ever hope to be.
Thinking of Finn Omat, Bach's lower lip quivered for a moment. Kotarian then turned back to Bach and smiled, but this time the condescending sneer was gone.
Of course. We know I could never be wrong.
They laughed again. I'm sure that despite their flaws, your parents are proud of you too. They should be. Kotarian flung the empty bottle into the river.
Perhaps. I do not know. I have not spoken with them in 7 years.
Bach leaned down over the edge of the bridge. It's okay, Kotarian. If you need me.
Don't push your luck, plowboy.
Kotarian turned to Bach.
Now, let's show those dung beetles what it means to cross the house's shining light.
And his friends? Bach asked hopefully.
Sigh. Very well. The house's shining light and friends. Satisfied?
That evening, Isabella brought a tray of dried fruits and assorted nuts up to the deck and invited Bach to join her. Have you ever had an apricot? She held out the snack tray. Bach shook his head and picked one of the sweet, dehydrated fruits. Almost as good as the dried apples my mother makes. So, did you and Avantil talk things through when you both went below deck? We did, and I understand I have you to thank. She took a sip of sparkling wine and poured some for Bach. That man can be stubborn, proud, hot-tempered, but I love him with all my heart. I can be all those things as well. I suppose we both needed a good friend to break the impasse and get us talking with, instead of yelling at, each other. I'm happy to help. And I truly am. Isabella doesn't need another unwanted suitor. She needs a good friend. And so do I. Bach smiled. Are you two good again? We are. Avantil and I know we both need to listen to each other more. Isabella touched Bach's muscular forearm, again sending a shiver through his body. Some things are difficult to change. This time he felt sure Isabella noticed. Bach, you will find someone, and she will be an incredibly lucky and loved woman. You think so? I know so, and I am always right. Just ask Avantil. They both laughed, and Isabella leaned back to look at the darkening sky. The river breeze felt good on Bach's face, but not nearly as good as enjoying this quiet moment with his friend, which is why he hated to voice the question he was about to ask. Isabella, can you teach me the death touch spell? The one you used in Nassim. I have a feeling I may need a secret weapon when we get to Ithanel. She sat up and looked into her cup before she spoke next. Bok, that is a difficult request. On this trip I have been forced to kill. I likely will have to do so again. But my gentle friend, know this. If you take a life, you also lose something you can never get back. Please consider this before you go down that path. Bach nodded. I understand, but I still need to know this spell, just in case. He hoped he never would have to use it, but he figured he needed any edge he could find if they had to confront Salandrian and the Scions. So Isabella pushed the tray aside and reluctantly taught him the spell. Remember, you want to point your hand down and then start the incantation, and focus your energy to your palm, not your fingertips. Bach followed as she instructed, soaking in every detail. After the tutorial, Bach thanked Isabella and sighed. Could I intentionally kill another person? Knowing it goes against everything I believe, even to save the lives of my friends? He didn't know the answer, but he was glad to have the incantation as a last resort. After they went below deck, Bach noticed that Avantil joined Isabella in the ship's cabin. He even heard giggling from behind their closed door, and this time he had the propriety not to listen in.